Morning, guys. In the office, the middle of October, and we are reviewing some trail camera cards this morning. And the topic of this video, or the point of this video, is it go time? Pretty much a survey of your days on stand versus your impact that you feel that you've had on the property, and a strategy moving forward as if is it go time or not. Now, one of the biggest things that I like to do, and that's the reason I have this trail camera picture pulled up right here, is one of the biggest things that I like to do is to always, if I'm hunting a farm or an area, even public ground, that I have hunted in the past, the first thing that we're going to talk about here is if you have the availability on a farm that you have hunted or an area that you've hunted, to go back in the past and really dig in deep to what the buck that you're maybe chasing this year that's on your hit list, or a new deer that has popped up. The moral of the story, guys, is if you are on them this year and you have history on that farm that you can go back and relate to and connect to, there's a very, very high percentage chance that you can relate this picture in your storage to what's to come in the near future going into the pre-rut. Now, there's only a certain number of days throughout the entire deer season in most parts of the country, in most parts of the whitetail range, that I can that I'd feel very comfortable on making a video such as this to tell you that this works. And this end of October, first week of November is one of those times. So let's stretch it over a 2-week time period. If we were talking September, I wouldn't be telling you that there's a good chance that you could go back and pinpoint when he's going to be there because of the weather, because of the heat, because of the crops, because of low pressure, all of the things that tie into that. Now, when we're talking about this, I can almost guarantee you that if you have history on a private parcel, or like I said, out on public ground, you can go back in and dig into this past information that hopefully you have stored. When I hear folks talk about deleting trail camera pictures, the first thing that jumps into my mind is I hope you didn't delete all of them. Very, very seldom do I ever find myself deleting an entire card. But before I do that, I select my pictures out that I want. And as you can see next to it here, I'll slide this over for you guys. As you can see, all these files right here are all labeled the names of my stands and the farms. And so that kind of gives you some history. Obviously, this is off an old trail camera from last year, but the date is October 16th, and the time is 7:22 this morning. So as I was loading some of the new stuff in from this morning, I started looking back on the season past, and sadly, we don't have an opportunity to hunt this particular farm. This is a folder just above the one that I was loading my stuff into. That kind of took me back to last year. This situation right here is one of them powerful tools that's not often talked about going back and digging into this time of the year. And you've heard me say, use the term before, if he's played his cards with you, he'll play them again. And this is exactly what I mean, guys. If you don't take the 10 minutes to store these photos in the right spots, sometimes you don't have the power to go back and really research this. So that's the first thing that we need to kind of chat about, is just making sure that you're putting these cards in the right spot and you're protecting them so they don't get deleted, they don't get lost. And whether you go the extent, I've got some hunt clubs that actually go ahead and print these out, which is a great idea. Print them out, they put them in a file and per stand, and if something ever happens to your hard drive or anything like that, you can go back and they pull them out on those stand locations. They start looking at dates, and there's a very high percentage time that I'm involved in that in the spring of the year or in the summer, in pinpointing what stand locations you need to be in and when. Now, obviously, from year to year, the storm fronts all roll in different on different weeks and with different strengths. He's going to be back in there. So this next week coming up here, the pre-rut, that's what is it go time in this title, is you have to be able to, for me to sit on the outside and tell you it's go time in your area. It may be go time in your area because of the date, but is it go time in your area because of your information? The second topic here is I get a lot of, and we're going to be doing some videos on this coming up more in depth. But the second topic or the concern that I get is the question is, hey Josh, I don't think these mock scrapes are really working because I'm not seeing the scrape itself open. And probably 80 to 90% of the videos that I get outside of the peak of the rut do not, the bucks that use the mock scrape do not open the scrape. So on a morning situation, let's say we get done hunting, that 10, 11 o'clock time comes up, then I go out, pull the card, and I always designate a certain stick in the area, and I set that right at the base of my tree or right next to my tree in the trail that I walk out to the camera, and that reminds me to pick that up, and then I use that to open my scrapes. I never put anything on the scrape itself or the vine itself or the stick itself, the licking branch. So if we use anything at all, obviously we use the Whitetail's Nature's Best scent, but I don't like to implement any more than I have to on that. So going out, making a visual, opening that up. So if he's transitioning by, he sees that it's kind of more of a draw. The stick itself is a draw, obviously, but just the fact of opening it and refreshing the ground and kind of releasing that scent, if there is anything from them putting that on it, from the deer, the natural scent of the deer putting it on there, obviously that just aids in that. But like I said, 90% of the time, outside of the week of the peak rut, I don't see the bucks actually coming in and just pawing the scrape up and using the scrape itself as much as I see them using the licking branch or the branch or the stick itself. And I really truly think that just by keeping them open maybe once or once a week, once every 2 weeks, it's more of they don't use the scrape as the communication that everybody thinks that they use as much as they use that scrape, because like I said, I've got hours upon hours of trail camera footage that I can show you. Like I said, and all my cameras are on video other than my cell cams. And the reason is I want to watch that activity. I want to watch that activity coming in and out of that scrape, directions, get the personality of the deer, find out how he's coming in and out of that, but also how they're using that scrape. And guys, like I said, they get more information off that stick than they get off that ground. The ground or the urine, the only thing the urine on the ground tells them is there was a doe there. I don't really believe that they can tell which deer was there, but that stick, to me, and from what everything that I've ever researched in the past on it, or everything that I've done my research myself, is they pinpoint the specific deer on that. And the reason that I believe that is because if you're lucky enough to have a piece of property that you're actually you put some habitat improvement on it, you've actually managed, and you're able to create these lines of travel and lines of movement and start pinpointing these scrapes around your farm and connecting the dots, if you will. There's a lot of times that I actually will get a buck on one of these licking branches, and he's by himself, and then a half hour later I get him behind a doe, and then 2 or 3 other cameras or 2 or 3 other times along the way in their 24-hour period, let's say, he's with that doe, he's with that same doe, and then he's by himself again, and then all of a sudden he picks a doe up and he's with that doe 2 or 3 times within that 24-hour period around the farm. And so I highly believe that they can tell which deer it is. They get way more information off that stick, and that's why I've labeled it over the years my inventory sticks, is because that's exactly what they are, for more than one reason. They're an inventory for me as a visual for the bucks, and it's an inventory for the buck itself, or the deer in general, but the buck itself, to start collecting that knowledge of who is there, not only male but also female, and really make the path. So it's not always about them pawing in the scrape that makes a scrape powerful. So don't gauge your is it go time by is the scrape open or not, because like I said, there's a lot of times throughout the fall that if I personally didn't open up that scrape with my scrape cleaner, I seriously don't think that they would be open the majority of the time. And because they only open them, I only see them getting very aggressive, really aggressive with them, outside, that here in the area that I'm in Michigan, for example, the peak rut's the 13th. And you know, both sides of that, you know, that 13th time period, November 13th, is I get a lot of that paw on the ground, dirt flying in pictures, and that's all, you know, that's all a little bit weather triggered as well, influenced as well. You know, that time of the year, if it's hot, obviously you're not going to see as much of it. But that's the power of these sticks, and that's why I call them like I said, the inventory sticks or the magnets, because I don't gauge my my ready to go setup, or my power of going into which stands and when I need to be in those stands by if that scrape's open or not. So so that's one of the points to really stop and think about, is that's why you need a camera on these mock scrapes, and also why you need it on video. And then the last thing, obviously, we're going to talk about, guys, is just the impact. Now, I've often been asked this, and I used to, you know, I used to narrow this down quite a bit more, but, you know, being on like this year, 60-some parcels around the entire country, 40 of which were in here in Michigan, the impact is a huge thing for me. And so, you know, I'm often asked, like, you know, how much is too much, kind of thing. And the way I used to gauge that is, if you're on the 15th of October and you can tell me through, usually when we're in the camps or when we're first doing these analysis packages, or if, you know, because I consult the entire year, if folks call me and say, hey, this is what's going on, what do you think? And, you know, if it's the 15th of October, so you're 15 days into the season, and when we start chatting, if your total sits exceed 10, then it's a high impact. Now, keeping that in mind, I always, you know, that always refers to, is it one farm we're talking about? Is it two farms we're talking about? Are you hunting 2 or 3 farms and public grounds? So there's a lot of equations that come into that. And if you can tell me that you sat in that stand more than 10 times, it's too much. And the reason is, I've got a gentleman that I'm actually meeting tomorrow, a local gentleman here. So we're on the 16th of October, and I'm meeting him this weekend. And we had this conversation. And when the conversation got to that point about, you know, how many times have you sat, he said, well, you know, that's kind of irrelevant. And I said, well, you know, the other night when I went by, I got out of the stand, and he was just getting out of his stand. I seen his light coming back across the field, and it was kind of a joke. Well, you're keeping a tab on me. And I said, well, I'm not, but how did you get back to hunt them, you know, where you were? I've worked on his farm. I know where he's at. And he said, his answer was, you know, yes, I hunted that stand, the so-and-so stand. And I said, okay. I said, but it was a northwest wind. And he said, yeah, but once I got to the stand, then the wind was okay. So that to me brings the topic right to the surface, is his access off from his farm is from the road to the north, and his entire farm lays to the south. And he can only access on the east side of that farm, and there's no other way to get down in there. So in other words, to make a long story short, he was walking on the west side of his property when I seen him. So not only did he walk into his stand, he was also walking out. And so in and out, both ways, the wind was blowing all the way through his farm. So it's not a personal attack on, obviously, and once you get to know me, and that's one thing that a lot of my clients, you know, once you guys get comfortable, a lot of my clients had a young lady not too long ago call and say, okay, what am I doing wrong? Something's wrong here. Every time I sit in a stand, something is just not right. You know, my percentages are extremely low. And so we went down the road of talking about a whole list of things that I, you know, bring to the table. And not once did she take it to offense. So that's the power. There's always something missing. You know, the gentleman that I just spoke of, you know, taking all my advice from when I designed the property, telling him how to get in and out of there, and then he's walking in on northwest wind. And the deal is it's just it's a want or a need or a want to hunt, whichever way you want to look at that. And it's once you get to this time of the year, going into the crucial best times when your percentages can go from 30% sits to 70 or 80% sits, to me, because I've done this for so long, it's a no-brainer. We're in the 16th right now, and I've got four sits on 2 different farms total, not 2 different farms apiece. Total 4 sits, and I don't feel ashamed or wrong or upset about that at all. So, but that, like I said, farm numbers, acreage numbers, the property itself, all that plays into it. But those are the situations that come to me time and time again, and that's why I bring this stuff to you guys, and that's why I travel all over the country, and collect this information and learn with the clients and actually bring this stuff to the table, because this stuff is happening all the time. And when that question pops up, is my impact is usually by the time you get to the middle of October, the rest of your season is at risk because your impact is too high. So take that, kind of, as I always say, kind of take that into consideration. Put some thought into that. Do some research, as we talked in the past. Pull some of these cards. Make the decisions on the weather coming up here. Watch the fronts. Go time is ahead. Is ahead of us. Go time was not before. We needed to be able to be in that situation where you're picking away at it. That picking away phase, I guess you could call it. Go time is in the end of October through the 20th of November. In most areas, that's when your higher success sits happen. So if anybody's got any questions, concerns, I never ask this, but we are creeping up on the ever so sought after 1,000 subscriber marks. And if you guys drop a like, subscribe to the channel, share these videos, I would surely appreciate that. I've got a big announcement coming up here that I'm going to do, put a little piece together even maybe this weekend, and we're going to be giving some things away once we hit that 1,000 subscriber marks here on YouTube. So take a lot of that to the bank, as I say, guys. This time of the year, I just it's frustrating sometimes to watch great clientele and great properties really be torn down and not brought to their full potential, or not be given a chance to get to their full potential because of just that want or need to hunt, and we're blowing that situation out before it even gets started. So as always, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.